This lesson is 8-1. It's notes for adding and subtracting polynomials. Okay, there's quite a few bits of terminology I want to share with you. You have notes that I gave you on Friday, and I asked you to glue them in to the left-hand side of page 44. There's 3 pages. Your C should be at the bottom, page C. B is in the middle, and then A is on top. So make sure that you have glued those in there. I went ahead and I typed in the words that go in the blanks, so you got some blank spaces there. You might want to stop the lesson, write those in, and then you can follow along with me as I pretty much read them to you and explain to you what they mean. Okay, a monomial is a number, a variable, or a product of a number and one or more variables. Okay, then we have examples of a number. You can choose any number to write in there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose the number 14. It's a number. It's also called constant monomial. The next one is an example of a variable. I'm going to go ahead and choose the variable. I think I'll choose y. Any number will, or any letter will do. X, Y, Z, B, A. Okay, a product of a number and a variable is like 4 times x, 4x. That's an example of a product and a number of a variable. And then we have the product of a number and variables. So I might choose negative 1/3, that is a number, times x squared, y, and z to the 3rd power. That would be a product of a number and variables. So all of these are monomials. They're one term. Okay, now then going down, a polynomial, and fill in that blank, is a variable expression in which the terms are monomials. A polynomial such as x squared plus negative 4x plus negative 5 is usually written as 4x minus, or x squared minus 4y minus 5. And we talked about that. You're usually not going to put the pluses between them. You're just going to put the negative sign for the 4 and a negative sign or a subtraction sign for the 5. It means negative and it also means subtraction. Okay, a little bit of identifying different pieces here. This says numerical coefficient, and that is pointing at our 4. So write that in that little circle that you have there. I went ahead and I decided I wanted to identify some other parts. The negative 8 is what you would call a constant, and then our x to the 2nd power and our x are both variables. Okay, a little bit more terminology. We're going to classify polynomials, put them into categories where they belong. Polynomials are usually written in standard form, which means that the same terms are arranged in descending order. The terms of the higher degree comes before the terms of the lower degree. Okay, we're going to find out what a degree is and what I'm talking about as far as descending order, but write that down. That's our definition, how we should classify polynomials and write them in descending order. Okay, a polynomial of one term is called a monomial. So write monomial on that line. Think of like you have monovision. You're only seeing one thing. Well, a monomial only has one term. A polynomial of 2 terms is called a binomial. It means that there's 2 terms, like a bicycle has 2 wheels. A polynomial of 3 terms is called a trinomial, like a tricycle. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4 below, we are going to classify each polynomial. So now number 1, I have just the constant 6. It's a number. It's one number, and it is a monomial. It's just one term together. So write that underneath. It's a monomial. But now this number 2 has a 3x and a 1. How many terms are there? There's 2 terms. So this is called a binomial. Oh, sorry. The next one, we have a negative x squared plus 2x minus 5. That's 3 terms, and that's a trinomial. And the last one, we just have 2 terms, and that's a binomial. You can also classify them by the exponent, where this exponent right here, it's an invisible 1. We call that a linear binomial. So I'm going to put at the top of mine, it's a linear binomial. We've been dealing with linear equations for quite some time here. They only had just an exponent of 1 with the x. The trinomial in number 3 has a exponent of 2. That's called a quadratic, and we're going to be dealing with those soon in our algebra class. Quadratic trinomial. And the last one has a exponent of 3, and it's cubed. It's called a cube binomial. Cubic binomial. Okay, so that's just a little bit of extra information for you. We are going to be getting to those soon. But know that 2 terms is a binomial, 3 terms is a trinomial, and 1 term is a monomial. Okay, when we talked about, so now that was the end of page A, so now flip it over, turn your page, and go to page B, and that's on the next page. We're going to be dealing with the degrees of a polynomial. Okay, and on the line there it says a degree of a polynomial in one variable. So if it only has one variable like x or y, then you're going to identify its degree by the exponent that's with that variable. Okay, so the degree of a polynomial in one variable is the value of the greatest exponent of the variables. Okay, so that's kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's see if it does make sense if we give some examples. Okay, so look at the number 6. Does it have any variable? It doesn't. So number 6 has a degree of 0. If I look at 3x plus 1, the exponent with that x is a 1. That one is a first degree. It has a degree of 1. Okay, and this x, it's the largest exponent is 2. So there's 2 x's right there, but the largest exponent is 2. So that equation is going to be a second degree trinomial. And then the bottom one, the largest exponent is a 3 because this is a 1. It's a third degree binomial. So it depends on the largest exponent of your equation, and that's how you're going to identify the degree. If there's no variable and it's just a number, it's a 0 degree. If there's just a letter and it is 1, the exponent is 1, it's a first degree. If the largest exponent is a 2, it's a second degree, and if the largest exponent is a 3, it's a third degree. Okay, so now let's go down and try some examples down here. I'm going to change my color because I'm going to write some answers here. 8x, this is 2, an invisible 1, so this is a first degree. It's a first degree, and it's a linear monomial. Okay, the next one, the degree is 2. It's a second degree. And a second degree is called a quadratic trinomial because there's 3 terms there. And this one, there's a 3, so this is a third degree. So first degree, second degree, and third degree. Okay, now that's enough. That's all the terminology we have. Now we're going to get into applying, and we are going to be adding polynomials. Polynomials are just, they can be binomials, trinomials, monomials. Poly just means many, so it just means many terms is what a polynomial is. Okay, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to start off with making some buckets. Okay, and we're going to put a bucket for each of the variable types that we have. So I look here, and I'm going to look for my variable, and I have some x to the thirds here. And then I look, and I also have some x to the seconds. And I also have some x, and then I also have a number. And what I just did here was I put my buckets in descending order, 3, 2, 1, none, according to their exponent. So this is a third degree, so it started off with 3, 2, 1. There's a 1 there, and then there's none, a 0 degree there. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the monomials, or all the terms that have x to the third power, I'm going to place it in this bucket. And I look and I see there's a negative 3x to the third power. And I'm looking and I want to see if there's any more, and there's not. And remember that negative sign goes with that 3. Okay, then I go to the x to the second powers. I see there's an 8x to the second power there. And then I have a 4x to the second power here. And then I look and see if there's any more x to the second powers. There's not. And then I look, okay, the next one is an x. I see there's a negative 2x. Is there any more x's? No, I don't see any. And then I look for numbers only. I see there's a positive 4. And I'm kind of crossing them off as I use them. And then I see there's a negative 1. Okay, so now that I've used, put each of my terms into a bucket, now I'm going to just add what's in the bucket. Okay, so my first bucket, I have a negative 3x to the third, and that's all I have, a negative 3x to the third. And then my second bucket, I have an 8 and a 4, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and it's positive, so I have a positive 12x to the second. And now I don't do anything with the variables and the exponents, I just leave them as they are. The third bucket, I have a negative 2x, that's all I have there. And my fourth bucket, I have a 4 minus 1, I have a positive 3. Okay, so what I just did was I added my polynomials, and I added all these terms together, and I used my buckets, and now I have my final answer, which is right here. Okay, and it is in standard form. Standard form just means descending order, using the exponents as my 3, 2, 1, none. Okay, now let's do the next one. The next one, I'm going to go ahead and put my buckets down here. And I look to see what terms I have. I have x squared, and that's the biggest one I have, so I'm going to start that one off first. And then I'm going to make another bucket for my x, and then I'm going to make another bucket for my numbers. Okay, by doing that and starting with the x squared first, I will automatically have it in standard form. So now I have 2x to the second. I use that one. Do I have any more x to the seconds? Oh, I have one. It's a positive 1x to the second. I'll go ahead and put my 1 there. Then x. I have an x here. It's a positive x. And then I have another x here. Okay, one thing I want to make sure is I don't get my x's that are part of my bucket confused, so I'm going to draw a line right here so I don't accidentally add those with my bucket. Okay, and then I have a negative 5. I'll go back to blue. I have a negative 5 that goes in my numbers, and I have a positive 6. Okay, so now, I want to make sure I don't add this up here. This is just my bucket titles. Okay, so I have a 2 and a 1, so I have 3x to the second. And then I have 1x plus 1x is 2x. So both these have 1s here. They're invisible, but I'll put them in there. And then I have a positive 6 and a negative 5, so that gives me a positive 1, because 6 minus 5 is 1. Okay, and so then I have it in descending order, 2, 1, none. and I added my polynomials. So that's my answer there. Okay, all right. I would like you to try these for yourself. I'm going to go ahead and have you stop the tape lesson, try it, and all I'm going to do is write the answer down here so that you can check your work. But use your buckets and fill it in. Okay, so hopefully you stopped it and you did the work on your own with your buckets. Your answer you should have came up with was 3x to the second minus x plus 4 for letter A, and 3x squared minus 8x minus 1 for letter B. Okay, now you're going to go to page C. So that was finishing up page B, so page C, and we're going to continue trying some on your own. So again, I'm going to stop the, I want you to stop the lesson here, try it on your own, and I'm just going to go ahead and write the answers once again, and you can check your work. Okay, so the answer to letter C you should have got was 5x to the third plus 4x to the second minus 6x plus 14. And then letter D was 7x to the second minus 5. Okay, and if you're not sure, if you didn't get those answers, go back up to example 1 and 2 on page B there, and look and see how we did. Actually, it was 8 and 9. Go back and up and see how I did the buckets, and go back and see if you can do that. If you can't, make sure you see me for help. Okay, the next part we're going to do is subtracting polynomials. Okay, this is pretty similar to what we just did, except there's one thing that you need to remember. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that thing that you need to remember. You need to remember that there is an invisible 1 here. Okay, when there's an invisible 1 there, that means we have to multiply everything we see by a negative 1. So that is going to change these numbers to the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and keep my left side. So negative 2x to the third plus 5x to the second minus 4x plus 8. And then I have negative is positive 2x to the third. And then not plus, it's going to be negative, and a positive is negative 3x, and then negative and negative is a positive 4. Okay, so those are what we're going to deal with. And let's go ahead and use our buckets once again. So I'm going to make my bucket. I'm not going to make it too far down because I don't need to have room. Okay, so I'm going to make my bucket here. And my largest exponent is x to the third power, so that's my x to the third power bucket. Then I have x to the second power, and then I have an x bucket, and then I have a number bucket. Okay, I'm going to change the color so I don't get confused with my bucket titles, and then my numbers that I'm putting in my bucket. Okay, so I have negative 2x to the third. That's going to go in that bucket, so I'm going to cross that off. Do I have any more x to the thirds? I do. I have a positive 2x to the third. Do I have any more x to the thirds? No. And then I have 5x to the second. Any more x to the seconds? No, that looks like them all. Now I go look at the next one. I have a negative 4x. That goes in the x bucket. And then I have a negative 3x. Goes in the x bucket. And then I have two numbers, an 8 and a positive 4. Okay? And I've marked off all of my numbers. So now I'm just going to add what's in my buckets. Well, I have a negative 2 and a positive 2. Well, that's 0. I don't need to write anything down. I'm going to cross that off. I don't need that one. I have a 5x squared here. And now I have a negative 4 and a negative 3. If I add them together, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they're both negative, so it's negative 7x. Remember, don't add anything with x, the variables, just bring the variables down. And now I have an 8 and a 4, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and it's a positive 12. Okay, so here's my final answer. 5x squared minus 7x plus 12. Okay? Alright, so now let's do the same thing with the number 11. We're going to go ahead and remember that there's an invisible 1 right here. And we're going to do distributive property before we do anything else. Do everything we see inside that, inside those parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and write the what's on the left, the 3x squared minus 5x plus 3. And then I have a negative and a positive is negative 2x to the second. Negative and negative is positive x. And negative is a positive 4. Okay, so now I've got I'm going to make some buckets again. Okay, so I've got a bucket for x to the second, that's my largest exponent. Then I have a bucket for just x's. And then I have a bucket for numbers. Okay, again, I'm going to change the color so I don't get confused with what's in my bucket and what's my label. Okay, so I'm going to look, and I see that I have a 3x to the second that goes in my x to the second bucket. I used it, I'm going to cross it off. Another x to the second, negative 2x to the second. Cross that off. I have a negative 5x. Cross that off. And I just have a positive x. We'll put a 1 here so we don't forget it's a 1. And now I used all my x's. Now I've got a number. I've got a 3 here. And then I have a 4 here. Okay, so I've crossed all my numbers off, my monomials, my terms. And now I'm just going to add what's in the bucket. So I have a 3 minus 2 is a 1x squared. And negative 5 and a positive 1, negative 4x. And a 3 and a 4 is a positive 7. So now I have x squared minus 4x plus 7. That would be my final answer. Okay, so on your paper you have 4 examples that I want you to try on your own, and I will write the answers down, and once you're done with it you can come back, check to see if you got them right. Okay, so here's the answers to E, F, G, and H. E was x squared plus x minus 13. F is x cubed plus 6x squared minus x minus 3. G is negative 8x to the third power minus 4x to the second power plus 8x minus 4. And then the H is 15x plus 2. If you have any questions, let me know in the morning, and we will be adding and subtracting polynomials in class.